Everybody knows that as Halloween approaches, the old mortuary in Gentry, Arkansas becomes very haunted. But by whom or what? After years of compiling evidence, paranormal investigators have identified several distinct ghosts who roam the halls there. Those secret files have now been released. Dossier number 1. Eunice, Mother, Carpenter. Taken from the book Dark Days in the Ozarks, A History of Rural Crime During the Great Depression by Titus Jenkins. And an acquaintance of the Carpenter family, who wished to remain anonymous, said Eunice had this to say of her beloved Carpenter Building, a place that would become the scene of one of the most horrible crimes in the area's history.
The old building was a mercantile and mortuary all under one leaky roof. It was a real crap hole, so after that cyclone leveled it in 28, Daddy rebuilt it out of bricks and iron. The place was fine as frog hair split 3 ways when it was new. But after the market crashed, we couldn't sell squat. Bank called the note and Daddy closed the doors. Then this letter came from the orphanage in Little Rock. It said they was out of room down there and needed to expand. Daddy agreed to lease him the empty building and grease some palms to make yours truly the administrator. Old man knew how to polish a turd, know what I mean?
Eunice's father, Eli Carpenter, a man thought of by the community as decent, passed away mysteriously in January of 1930, leaving his daughter with everything he owned. She immediately brought on a crew of vagrants and miscreants to run the various operations. Mismanagement turned to outright abuse. Abuse turned to murder. Overworked inspectors rarely visited, and it took authorities nearly 2 decades to discover the atrocities that were ultimately committed there. This police report, dated November 1st, 1950, details some of what investigating officers discovered following what's now known as the Halloween Massacre.
Continued from page 6. At this point, we walked down a hallway that led from the chapel to what appeared to be a laboratory. The lab consisted of 4 main rooms. In the first were a number of human limbs and heads laid out on counters and shelves, along with various surgical devices. Many of the devices were stained dark red. These stains were later determined to be blood. Another room contained an electric chair similar to the one at the Tucker unit in West Memphis. Sitting in the chair was an unconscious young white male. Officer Miller checked for a pulse and could not find one. Burn marks on the male's head were consistent with death by electrocution. In the following room was another body strapped to an examination chair. We could see multiple bruises and cuts. Some of the wounds appeared to be fresh, many of them had healed. The victim's right arm was missing from the elbow down. A severed arm was floating in a nearby tank. This arm was later found to belong to the victim. To the south of the lab was a room containing several workbenches and a crematorium oven. The oven was still burning and the room was hot. There were many more human remains in this room. All the bodies were dismembered, but the parts were small. Officer Miller and I believe that these remains belonged to children. Continued on page 8.
Having caused such suffering during her lifetime, Mother Carpenter is clearly one of the foulest ghosts inside Carpenter's Mortuary.